Hello and welcome to another video of Out of DevOps. Today we're going to talk about service accounts in Google Cloud Platform, how to use them, why they're important, and what are the risks associated with them. I'm doing this video because in the previous one where I explained the workload identity federation and the integration with GitHub Actions, I received some comments about context and I realized that there was not much context in that video. So I'm going to give you an overview of service accounts, service account keys, what are the risks, and why workload identity federation can mitigate some of these risks. Before we start, if you're new, welcome. I'm Anto and this is Out of DevOps, a YouTube channel where I talk about software engineering. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this kind of topics, and see you after the intro. So I'm going to cover what are the service accounts, how we can use service accounts, what are the risks associated with service accounts, in particular with service account keys, and how we can mitigate them. So let's start with what are service accounts. A service account essentially is an identity that can be used inside the cloud. So Google Cloud provides a way to authenticate users, but also authenticate applications or resources. When I say resources, we can authenticate something like a virtual machine. To better understand service accounts, here is an example. So let's suppose we have an application that needs to use Google services. You can use PubSub or Cloud SQL, for example. To access these services, you need some sort of credentials, so you need to authenticate against the API. To authenticate against the API, we can use the service account. So now, let's see how we can use the service account. So service account can be used in different ways. If you're running from GCP resources, for example, you're running your application on a VM, you can authorize the VM directly. So you can associate to that specific VM a service account that will be used for any communication with the Google APIs. This is called default credentials. This is one way to use service accounts. There are other ways. One of them is when we have an application that doesn't run on any Google Cloud infrastructure, but lives, for example, on our machine or another cloud. So in that case, we have another option, which is a service account key. When we generate a service account key, what we are doing is issuing a way to authenticate as the service account. So it's like generating a username and password. The service account key in reality doesn't contain a username and password, but contains a private key. That means that anyone with access to that service account key can operate as the service account. So can make requests against Google APIs, and those requests will be authenticated. So as you can understand, this is a risk, and it's even bigger when we consider the fact that a key generated using Google Cloud Console can live forever, so it doesn't have an expiry date. To avoid all these risks, the best thing is to avoid service account keys completely, and workload identity federation is a mechanism that can allow in some circumstances to avoid the use of service account keys. Workload identity federation uses external identity providers to authenticate requests coming from outside Google Cloud. And the way it works is by exchanging a token coming from the external identity provider with a short-lived access token to access the Google API. You can watch the previous video for a complete example of workload identity federation configured for GitHub Actions or IDC as identity provider. Workload identity federation can completely remove the need for service account keys, but this is true only in the case you can configure workload identity federation when you have an external identity provider. But what about all the other use cases where we still need the service account keys? Well, service account keys, as mentioned, they don't expire, but when generated using the Google Cloud Console, there is a way to generate service account keys that expire. In the next video, I will show you how to create short-lived service account keys that will expire in just a few minutes. But for now, that's all, and see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and to click the like button. Bye!